Hello, welcome back to Dropping Floats. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark, and today I'm going to save you a lot of money. Stay tuned to see how. On today's episode, I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to build your own magnetic rod holder. I got a demo here. It looks pretty professional really for a home built deal. I've been working on these, nothing new. You can buy these retail from manufacturers. I think they start about $150. We're going to make a pretty cool one today for way less than that, and save you some money. Our ending goal should be about $60 for both rod holders. These are very popular with fly fishermen or any angler really for doing low speed travel. I use these almost daily along the Deschutes, where I'm doing 30-35 miles an hour at the most. I've tested them up to 50 with the rod on them, and they held. I wasn't brave enough to go above 50. At least with the rod that I had on, I wasn't brave enough. Maybe I'll get a cheaper rod and go speed test them and see how fast I can get up to. But yeah, I've had them up to 50 and they've held. So this magnetic base is plenty strong, and it's rubberized, so it doesn't do any damage to your paint, which is nice. We're going to go step by step on how to build one of these. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all this apart, and then we're going to reuse the base. I made a mistake when I was doing these. This is the second go around, the second refinement. I've done a first attempt, kind of refined to the second attempt, and now I'm going to refine for the third attempt, all for the benefit of all of us. So now you don't have to do 3 attempts. I've already done it, and you can learn from where I've messed up. What I plan to fix on mine is I didn't quite get this tight enough, so they kind of swivel, which honestly hasn't been that big of a deal if they move around a little bit. But I'm just going to go through, double check, make sure I got that nut tight there. I'm not sure if I used a lock nut. I might have just used a regular nut and it's backed off a little bit from vibration. But I'm going to cut all this wrap off, get down to the nitty gritty, and then we'll go step by step on how to build one, what components you need. I've got everything laid out here so you won't have any guesswork. It's all figured out, and I think this is will be a pretty good final rod holder that you can home build for. The goal is in that $50 to $60 mark, which could be a $100 to $150 savings depending upon which one you were looking at and getting. I think they're way too expensive for what they are. Buying one that's pre-done, and the thing I really like about them is you can get a pretty finished looking product the way I've come up with, and if you ever break it, like say if it does fall off and gets broke, or you run it over, whatever. Now you know how to rebuild it, and you can rebuild it with next to nothing, with common household PVC plumbing parts. All this, so we've got the T's, we got the piece of pipe, we got the end caps for the ends, and then the little plugs for the down on the base. So we've got everything we need, and then the little eye bolts that you can get at any hardware store will have these. The size is 3/16 to 1.5 inch, and they're around about $1 a piece, so they're pretty cheap. All this is 1/2 inch plumbing hardware. Again, any hardware is going to have it, any hardware store. And then we have the bungee balls that we'll use to actually, secure the rod like that, and then finally, this silicone tape. It's made by Gardner Bender. It's a hardware brand. Again, it should be something very common to find at Ace, to do it best, True Value, probably even Home Depot, to be able to find. This is really neat stuff. It's non-adhesive, and it only binds to itself, so it really gives you a very nice, comfortable grip feel to whatever you wrap it on. I use it on rod holders, and I also use it on my center pin rods that don't have a reel seat. I'll use this to wrap and secure them, and it gives it a nice, great feel. You're not getting any kind of adhesive on your expensive fishing pole. So it's very cool stuff. And then the most important piece that we'll be working with is this magnetic base. I kind of looked on the internet for a while trying to find an affordable base to start the platform off of. I finally found it. It's a Nylite magnetic light bar base. There is an affiliate link in the video description of this video. If you use that link, I get a small commission on it, but more importantly, you get to save 5% on the light bar base. This will be the most expensive thing you'll have to find. And I made it pretty easy for you. Just use that link in the description. I will also have a lot of this other stuff linked, probably to my eBay store, making it easy for you to find if you're unsure about what to get. I'll have it all on there, so all you gotta do is just click and go from there. But yeah, this base retails for $40. That's the most expensive piece. You know, if you use the link, you save 5%, so it knocks it down a little bit. And that is kind of what we're going to build upon. And it comes with the hardware to attach it there, and it comes rubberized, all ready to rock and roll. And we'll start with that, and then we'll build up from there. Okay, so I went ahead and got the old ones all tore apart. I did it off camera just so the video is not going to be 45 minutes long. Got it all tore apart. I guess a quick mention, the tools you're going to need to accomplish this is going to be a screwdriver, either like a ratchet or a wrench. A pair of pliers is always handy to have, and a drill for drilling some holes. You will also need a way of cutting the PVC, a hacksaw. I have a PVC cutter that I use at the store. It's not worth going out and buying this to build this. You know, you can cut PVC with about anything, so a hacksaw is sufficient. And the first step we're going to do is we're going to need to go ahead and drill the holes in the center of all the caps for the ends, and then we'll need to drill a hole in the center of the plug to mount on the base. And that's where we're going to start, is with the hole, drilling it, and that will be the base of our rack to come up off the magnetic base. So before you start with drilling your holes, you want to make sure and match up the size of the eye bolt with your drill bit. You want to get pretty close. You don't want to have a bunch of slop. We're looking pretty good there. This was like a 5/32 that I'm using to make the hole. A little bit bigger is okay. You just don't want it to be way bigger, because then it's gonna, you know, really flop around and not be a sturdy support like what you're after. And a little trick to help get the center is you can take a pencil and you can do an X just across real quick, and where the lines meet is pretty close to the center of what you're trying to drill. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these drilled and then move on to the next step. So I went ahead and got all my holes drilled in the end caps. The next step is going to be to go ahead and insert the eye bolt that holds our bungee into the hole that we drilled, and mine is pretty snug, so I'm going to have to use something to help me twist it in there. And this brings me to the first point where you could kind of make a mess up, is when you get this all together, you're going to end up gluing it together. So you're not going to be able to get back to this nut that's on the inside of the PVC. And you're going to not want to use the nut that comes with the eyelet when you get it from a hardware store. The reason for that is it's just a regular nut. There's not a lock washer there. So you're going to want to upgrade the nut to a locking nylon lock nut. That way, once you cinch it down, it can't back off from vibration like the traditional basic nut would. So you're going to want to change that when you go and get these eye bolts to a nylon locking nut. They're cheap. They're probably like 20 cents. I mean, the whole eye bolt's about $1. All the components are pretty cheap other than the base. Your caps are about 89 cents. Your Ys are about $1. And your base is about 89 cents. And the couplers we'll use, I think, are about $1. So, and the stick of PVC, that's a short half stick. It's more than we're going to use. You can probably get a half stick for $5 at Home Depot or Ace or something. Or Mop and Country Store and Hardware. You can. I do have all this stuff to make this. So you could swing by and get all the components. and I can help you assemble it if you have any questions on how to do it. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get all the eye bolts into the caps, and then once that is done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Well, all right, we're moving right along. I've got the eye bolts secured into the end of the caps. You want them fairly snug. You don't want them to, if they move a little bit, it's not a big deal. You just don't want them to be very, very loose where they move easily, because the bungee is going to pretty much kind of more or less hold those in shape when you're using it. But you definitely want to snug them down so they're not easily rotating around in there. So those are done. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to drilling the hole in the PVC plug. And this is going to go on the base right there that we're going to come up with to make our T. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill that. Let's make quick work of this. There we go. One more. Alright, so now those are drilled. We're going to use a 1/4 inch stainless hardware is what I use. You don't necessarily have to go stainless, but since this is going to be out in the weather, I would probably recommend doing some type of a stainless. And then I run the screw down through the cap like this, like that. It's going to come through just like that, and you may have to actually thread it a little bit through the cap, which is a good thing. You want it to be snug. You don't want it to be loose, because this is where, if it's going to slop and move around, it's going to be on this piece. But before I go ahead and run that through, it's a little too snug. So what I'm probably going to go ahead and do is take my drill bit and just hog it out just a tiny bit. We'll go ahead and do it to both of them. Alright, so that makes it a little easier. And on this go around, I am going to put a lock washer on the head side to go down through there and just make sure that it's nice and snug and secure and won't loosen up. The times in the past where I've had these loosen up, it's on this joint. So I'm going to do kind of take an extra precaution here to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And we're just going to run that all the way in. There we are. And then that's going to kind of come down through here. We can go ahead, I'm going to do another washer here. And then we can go ahead and secure it with another nylon locking nut. What's really important with nylon locking nuts is you need to make sure you get a thread past that plastic little washer on the inside of the threads. If you don't do that, it's not going to be a locking nut, in which it can have the possibility of backing up on you, which we do not want. And we want to get this very snug to try to eliminate it rotating around like my previous version did. Yeah, I think we're going to be good. So that's the start there. I'm going to go ahead and get the second one all ready to go to match this, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, for this next step is we get to do a little bit of customization to what fits your need, which is pretty cool. Something you're not going to get with a mass-produced store-bought rod holder or rod carrier. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and do a dry fit of all of this before we glue it. We will end up gluing it together. So we're going to need a coupler to join the plug with the PVC, here. So we're going to do our first kind of cut, and this is where the first bit of customization comes in, because we all fish with different rods, for different species, yada yada yada. We all use different equipment. Maybe you're just into fly fishing for trout, and so you use a much smaller reels than someone maybe who's center pinning for salmon, who are going to be using a big 6-inch reel. Where that comes into play is your clearance with where that cross piece is going to be. you know, so you can customize it, you know, to fit the gear you use. Um, I like to have mine about 6 inches of clearance here, and the clearance would be from the hood. The car hood's going to be down here, so I want about 6 inches of clearance for that T, because some of my center pin reels are pretty large in diameter, and I want to make sure they're not bouncing on the hood or hitting the hood when I'm going down the road. I want them to be, you know, to clear it. So this is where we get to customize it a bit to suit you. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get it measured up, and then get my first 2 pieces cut. Once that's done, I'll meet back up with you. Alright, got my first 2 pieces cut here. I can go ahead and kind of start doing a dry fit. So that's the coupler. It's going to join the plug to the PVC bit. Get that on there. Get this guy on here. Get it in there. Alright, how even are we? Pretty darn close. Close enough. Alright, and from there, our T will go ahead and sit right on top of that. Top of that guy. Top of this guy. Go ahead and press around there pretty good. And then here's our next bit of customization. So they're really starting to take shape, you know, they're kind of turning into something, which is fun and exciting. So our next bit of customization for you and for me is how many rods are we going to want to be able to get on here? Are we going to want to be able to haul 10 rods? Or we want to be able to haul, you know, 4? So this is kind of up to you. I usually fish by myself or one other buddy. So being able to carry 4 rods is more than plenty for me usually. But I have seen some people who have got, you know, 12 different rods all slammed on their hood of their car. So this is kind of up to you on how wide you want them to be. But do take in mind how far these can stretch. I found these work the absolute best. I tried a regular bungee and a couple other things, and these things are rock solid so far, and they're cheap. I think a package of 2 is about $5. So they really work well for holding the rods down. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it to where I can haul about 4 rods without them clanging together. Get those 2 pieces cut, and then we'll do a dry fit, and then get the end caps on, and then at that point you'll get to see how these go through to secure the rod, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn you off, get these last 4 pieces cut, and show you a dry fit on the next clip. Alright, in this next step, you want to definitely do a dry fit. Go ahead and put everything together. And there's a couple things you want to look for. I kind of mentioned it already with your bungee. How far will the bungee stretch? How many rods are you trying to haul? So we're going to get a dry fit going here and see how it looks. Because there's 2 things we don't want. We don't want this section to be so short that this doesn't create tension on the bungee. You could get in and shorten the bungee if you wanted to, so it's not like the world ends if you don't get it wide enough apart. So then you're just going to thread the one end up and over, and onto the other eye bolt. I normally will do a little zip tie right here. It helps hold it up, and it creates a nice little loop. Bring it in closer there. So we'll put a zip tie right there, because right now it's going to do this. Don't worry when you see that happen, because we're going to do a black zip tie right there. And it does 2 things. It helps hold the bungee together, and then it also creates a very nice loop, so when you're out fishing, it's easy to grab that and just loop it over, and off you go. So I would say I was pretty happy with that tension. Just pretend like the zip tie is there. Yeah, it's pretty good. You know, you don't want it to be so tight that it could possibly maybe damage the rods. I don't know how it could, but maybe. But you just don't want it to be so tight that it's hard to get pulled over when you're out in the field. So yeah, I'm happy with that width. I would say I can get 4 rods in there comfortably without having them bang together. So perfect. So I like that width. So let's go ahead and do a dry fit on this one real quick. Alrighty, they're pretty pretty even, which is awesome. So they'll look good on the truck. And then at this point, we've got some deciding to do. We did a dry fit, nothing's glued together, so we can easily pull it apart. So you could take this apart and paint it if you wanted to paint it black. I'm not going to paint mine. I'm gonna wrap mine with that silicone tape that I mentioned. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with mine. You know, where'd the height come out? Let's go ahead and check the height. It might be a smidgen tall. Yeah, it's a smidgen tall. So I'm probably gonna shorten this piece here by about an inch. I'm gonna bring it down because that's too tall for what mine needs. You know, I don't need it to be that tall. So yeah, I'm gonna pull this apart. This is why we dry fit. I'm gonna pull this apart, take an inch out of that, and I think it'll be money at that point. And then I can go ahead and glue everything together. Alrighty, so I went ahead and got that center piece trimmed down. Let's go ahead and measure, see where we're at, see if that's where I want it. You want to go from the top there, that's where your rod's going to sit, down to where, so we're about a 6 and about a quarter, which I can live with that. I was shooting for 6. I don't think trying to cut off quarter is going to really change the outcome of the product much. So like I said, here's a choice you get to do. You get to, if you want to paint it, you can paint it. If you want to go ahead and wrap it, you can wrap it. In my previous versions, I did do some pipe foam insulation over the PVC to give it some cushion. I think once I wrap it with this silicone tape, I'm going to really not need to do that. So I'm going to skip that for this third version and see how I like it. I think it's going to work really good. I really don't think you need a bunch of that. And that eliminates, you know, a cost having to buy the foam insulation. And I just really don't think that cushion's going to be needed once we get it wrapped in that silicone tape. So let's jump right into the tape. So it's a silicone self-adhering tape. It only adheres to itself. It's pretty. I'll show you a little example here. Cut a piece off. It's about $10 a roll, roughly. You might be able to find it cheaper online or something. But there's no adhesive to it. It's just, it feels like a little piece of rubber. But as soon as you fold it over and it touches itself, it binds to itself. And so yeah, it's really cool for wrapping any kind of grip, or if you're attaching like a rod like I do with my center pin rods, it is excellent for that. And then to get it off, it just cuts right off and it leaves no adhesive or anything on whatever surface you wrapped it on. It's like, cork can be kind of delicate, it doesn't leave anything on the cork. So it's a super neat product that I kind of stumbled upon when I was trying to figure out alternative ways of attaching a center pin reel without using, I didn't want to use an adhesive tape. So I started kind of diving down the rabbit hole of finding something non-adhesive, and this stuff is amazing. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and start getting this puppy wrapped. I have found it doesn't really matter where you start. I've started on the ends and worked my way in, and then I've worked my way up. Actually, but I jumped a step. I need to go ahead and get this glued, then wrapped. So let's go ahead and get the glue going. To do this, you can just use any kind of all-purpose PVC cement. It doesn't have to be special or anything. And so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this apart. I don't need to do it on camera. Pull it apart, get it all glued together, shove it back together, and then I'll show you a couple little tricks with working with this stuff. Since it does bond so well to itself, you have to be kind of careful when you're wrapping that you don't get it to bind when you don't want it to. So yeah, I'll get this glued, and then we'll get it wrapped, and we'll show you the final product and go put it to use. Alrighty, here we're going to glue this guy together, and like all kind of gluing, just a little dab would do ya. We're not looking for a watertight fit with this PVC. We just want it to, you know, hold together. So where'd my coupler go? There's one. It's going to go there. And with this PVC cement, you do get a little bit of time to make adjustments if you need to get it to lined up. It doesn't bond so quick that you can't. So just be mindful of that. You don't have to shove it together perfect the first time you put it together with the glue, um, which is definitely very helpful. So just a little bit there. I'm just using a clear PVC cement. Um, but you do want to make sure and press it, make sure it seats. So that's seated pretty well. So from here we'll go to our T. And I always put the glue on the male piece. I don't know if it really matters. A plumber might correct me, but then again, I'm really not plumbing, so. And get that together. A little more. Oh. All right, now we're on to the fun part now. You know, I like the gluing together. You know, maybe it's the fumes. But you know, it's kind of nice to see your little project take shape, you know. And at the end of this, we're going to do a tally and see about how much money I was into this retail versus going and buying a pre-made one from a manufacturer. All right, so really make sure those are shoved in there good. So that's glued together. We just got to do our ends. As we're gluing this together, we want to make sure that our eye bolts sit horizontal. That way the bungee cord can get the most grab on so it fits securely. So we'll wrap that on there. Make sure we get them on there horizontal. You could always twist them down the road if you get them on crooked. So it's not end of the world. Just give it a good squeeze. And there you are. One is glued together. And I'm gonna move on to the next one here, get it glued together, and then we'll move on to wrapping it with silicone tape. All right, so we're getting really close to a finished product. From here, you can decide if you wanted to paint them, how you want to finish them. Put some pipe wrap on them. Wrap the wrap tape on them. You could just leave it with pipe wrap, PVC, however you want to finish it. One thing I am going to do is going to go through and just kind of wipe off maybe any excess glue it might have hanging. They did a pretty good job. Don't have a ton of glue wanting to drip or anything. So a little bit there, a little bit there. Not too bad. So there you are. I figured now is a good time to kind of do a tally and see what we spent to build this versus buying them off the shelf pre-done. So we got $40 for the magnetic base. I'm going to say $5 for a 5-foot stick of PVC, even though we didn't need to use 5 feet. So $5 there. This tape is $10. The fittings are all about $1, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So $10 for fittings. 40 plus 5 plus 10 plus 10. The bungees, let's see, peek over on the shelf, are only $3. So plus 3. And then how you want to finish it kind of dictates what else we need. I'm going to be done with a grand total of $68. I'm not going to paint mine. I'm not going to do pipe insulation for a cushion. I feel this is going to have enough cushion that my rods are going to be protected. So we're done. $68 versus, I mean, cheapest I saw was $149 when I was looking around briefly, and I was like, well, I'm not paying $150 for a pair of something so basic. And like I said, I think there's a huge advantage building your own. You get to customize it to your gear, and then like I said, if it falls off or gets ran over or whatever weird life circumstance, the expensive part is the base. So I mean, I could rebuild this for probably $15 if I had to, you know, if one did get broke, which is a huge plus, you know. And then you know how to do it, so you'll have these for years, versus some of the manufacturer ones, they get broke, means they don't offer replacement parts, so then you're stuck spending $150 again to get another set. A quick note though, not all modern cars have a metal hood. A lot of them are plastic or fiberglass. So you'll want to test, before you decide you want to do this project, you want to test and make sure your hood is actually a metal hood. Because I have not found an affordable suction cup kit to do a homemade suction cup rod holder yet. I'm sure I'll find one eventually, but these magnetic stands work excellent. So I'm going to go ahead, start getting this wrapped. I'm just going to start from one end to the other. But this stuff, you do have to be careful working with this since it's self-bonding. If you do a miswrap and wrap it around, it bonds fairly quick. So you just have to be a little mindful when you start wrapping your project. And this would be great for not just rod holders, but for anything that you need a grip on. And this seems to hold up pretty good. Look what I just did. Saying be careful, and I cut off that piece and let it fall, hit the other piece, and it bound to itself. So there we go. Alright, so I'm just going to start from one end, going over, and I put a fair amount of tension on it, and I'm not trying to stretch it. I just want it to be a nice solid wrap. And once it gets to where it can touch itself, I just kind of give it a quick pinch so I know it's going to be bound, and then I'll move on kind of at a slight angle, and on we go. Just putting light tension on it. You don't need it to be very super tight when you're going around. So I'm going to get working on this, and then once I get it wrapped, I'll jump back on and show you kind of what the finished product looks like. Well, here we are kind of on the last step to building our rod holders. There's the finished look of them. Kind of get it, maybe I'm wearing black, so there we go. Kind of get a look. Pretty nice looking finish. And the last step we're going to need to do is just thread the bungee up through the eyelet of the eye bolts, like so. There. And one over here. Doesn't really matter which way you go, because you can always just rotate the rack around. Alrighty. Get that boy up and through there. And like I was saying, I like to put a little zip tie to create that loop. So this any old zip tie will work. Get it started here. Just trying to keep it consistent here. Really try to snug that down so it doesn't pull through on you. Well, I haven't got it snug. I might need to go to a smaller zip tie here to. Oh, I got a couple more clicks on it. Oh, I think that's going to work. This makes it a nice spot to grab and pull from when you're down on the river. So boom, boom, there we are. That is good to go, and see how that zip tie holds the bungee closer together. If you remembered earlier in the video when I pulled that across, it kind of separated. See that? So that having that little pinch of a zip tie there is really essential to making them perform how you're going to want them to perform. And again, we just loop that around, get that zip tie going. Try to space it out however big of a loop you want. Alright, really pull that tight so they can't pull through. There we are. Yeah, that's going to work. Now we have that, and boom, totally different. Now that bungee's staying up there where you want. It's not super tight, so it's not going to damage your rod. And that is the finished product. Last thing to do is we're going to go out and throw them on the truck and get a couple shots of them on the truck, and we'll do a little test run down on the river here in a little bit so you guys can see how they work and how they look, and we'll kind of go from there. Well, here I am outside the store getting our finished product mounted onto the truck. Here, check it out and see what you think. And they turned out very well. It's kind of a third iteration, cleaning up the build. So 68 bucks. You can have your own set of rod holders. I've had this exact set up to 50 miles an hour going down the highway, and they held. I haven't done a full fail test to see how fast they would manage, but 50's fast enough for me. You know, down along the river, I'm never much above 30. So if they can handle 50, then that tells me they're not going to fail anytime soon at 30 miles an hour. So, hey, you know, thanks for tuning in. As always, you know, hit a like and subscribe. If you have any questions about anything involving the lower Deschutes, you know, or anything about center pin in general, hit me up. And I love chit-chatting about fishing. So until next time, we'll see you later.